Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. Today we have to discuss on KEYMARK, and we have a lot of exciting things to share with you. So, my name is Danaé Kokkalis, and I'm a communication officer at the European Heat Pump Association. But what does this really mean? Well, this is the best way I could depict my role. My daily job is to communicate about heat pump technology through engaging, convincing, and hopefully creating messages. And today is an exception because I'll be taking the role of moderator for this webinar. So I've told you a few words about myself, but I would like to hear from you. So to get started, I would like to know where you are connecting from, and I will now launch a poll where you should be able to add your responses. It should pop up on your screen right now. So I will also enter mine because we are doing this webinar from Brussels, but we have speakers from everywhere, and I know that you are also probably joining from different places. So that's great. I already see London, Lyon, France, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Poland, Italy, a lot of Brussels, of course. Great. So while you're still inputting and adding where you are connecting from, I can get slowly started with the agenda. I promise that we had a lot of exciting things in store, so here's an overview of what we will cover today. I will begin with an introduction of EHPA, and then I'll give the floor to Tarik, who will give you an overview on the Heat Pump KEYMARK and explain the certification process. Following up, Ivan Malenković from the Fraunhofer Institute will give a presentation on the testing laboratories and the various aspects of the testing procedure. After 45 minutes of presentations, we will take a short break to catch our breath. And right after the break, I hope that you will be energized because our colleague Mélanie Auvray from the policy team will talk about Ecodesign, the European regulations, and how they are linked to the certification. Last but not least, Laurent Bénédit from Groupe Atlantic will be the voice of the manufacturer. He will explain the benefits, but also the challenges of having their products KEYMARK certified. And finally, we have foreseen enough time at the end to answer any questions you may have. Now, some housekeeping rules in case you are not familiar with this format. As a webinar participant, your camera and mic are disabled currently to avoid any disruption, but we strongly invite you to ask your questions in the chat and don't forget to mention the name of the speaker you would like to address your question to. This webinar is recorded and you will receive both the presentation and the recording after this webinar. Okay, so now I can get into the introduction of EHPA. You heard me mentioning it earlier, but what does it mean and how is it related to the Heat Pump KEYMARK certification? Well, EHPA stands for the European Heat Pump Association, and our mission is to promote heat pump technology as the #1 heating and cooling solution in Europe. Our policy team is the voice of the sector. They advocate to raise awareness around the technology and create better conditions on the market. But I will let my colleague Mélanie talk about it later as well. Then the Heat Pump KEYMARK, this is where we sit. So as EHPA, we were mandated to coordinate the Secretariat of the scheme. That means that we are responsible for scheduling meetings between different bodies, coordinating communication activities, providing support, etc. But as EHPA, we also have and manage our own certification. It's called the quality label, and it's a certification that is based on a national label. Then our projects team is involved in many EU-funded projects regarding heat pumps and renewable energy. Sorry, I skipped a slide too fast. And if you are interested in EU-funded projects, feel free to get in touch with them. You have all the details in this slide. Of course, EHPA is larger than these three departments. We also have the Events and Memberships department, the Communications department, but you can find all the information on our website, ehpa.org. So this brings me to the first presentation, and I will give the floor to Tarik Bellahcene, who is the head of the Heat Pump KEYMARK Secretariat. He will give you an introduction to the Heat Pump KEYMARK scheme and explain a bit about the certification process.
Thank you, Danaé. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. It's really a pleasure to see that many people interested in certification. I know that we are a lot interested in heat pumps technology, but it's even more interesting to see that the certification and quality aspect is also of your interest, and no doubt about this, that you are looking at always delivering quality products. So my name is Tarik Bellahcene. I am coordinating the KEYMARK certification for heat pumps and the quality label that is a EHPA quality mark. I will take control now and I can start. And today I will speak about the KEYMARK in general to explain to you what is KEYMARK. And then we will directly dive into the topic where we will speak about KEYMARK dedicated to the heat pumps. We'll go to the certification process, the scheme recognition, a lot of questions these last weeks, the database, the communication, and finally we need to go as a takeaway the benefits of the heat pump KEYMARK certification. So what you need to know about, very important about KEYMARK is that it's a voluntary quality mark for products and services. And what is important to know is the unique European certification today that is recognized in Europe as a reference, as a quality reference. Who owns KEYMARK? It was the initiative of CEN to harmonize the market and decided to launch this KEYMARK concept. So as I said, the KEYMARK can be applicable for any product or service at the only one condition is that there is a European standard which can back up and support this KEYMARK scheme. On top of the standard that needs to be European standard, it will need also to comply to the Ecodesign requirements that we will talk about later on with Mélanie. So the KEYMARK is a quality mark, it's a certification. It is important to keep this in mind, and it is issued by a certification body. It's not an auto declaration, it's not a second party certification, it's a third party certification that is issued by a certification body. So now, as I said, the KEYMARK needs to have and is referring to European standards, and it is also covering the products or any service. We can give some examples of products that are covered by a KEYMARK scheme, certification scheme, insulation, solar. Maybe you are familiar with the solar the solar products, or radiator valves or extinguishers, ceramics. All these products are covered by a KEYMARK certification scheme. Now, let's focus on heat pumps. So KEYMARK is also covering our sector, which is the heat pump sector. And in the scope of our KEYMARK certification scheme, you can find different type of heat pump, space heaters providing heat for the central heating systems, for space heating purposes, or for domestic hot water, or combined. And also it can also cover the air heat pumps with 12 kilowatt cooling capacity or heating capacity for air heating only. So this is really a very short summary of all the type of heat pumps that we can cover, but you can find this information in the heat pump KEYMARK rules that are on our website. So who is doing the work? Because it's good to decide that heat pump can be covered by a certification scheme, but who is doing really the work? So we have for the heat pump KEYMARK certification scheme, we have a scheme group, we have a steering committee, and we have the secretariat where I'm sitting that is run by the EHPA. And these groups, the scheme group, the steering committee, and the secretariat is involving de facto directly the manufacturers, the testing laboratories, the certification bodies, and the EHPA, the European Heat Pump Association. So this group, the scheme group, the steering committee, and the secretariat is somehow supervised by what we call a KEYMARK management organization. So on behalf of CEN, there is a management organization that is supervising, supporting all these KEYMARK schemes, including the heat pump KEYMARK. By the way, here, this is a picture of the last heat pump scheme group to tell you that we are really working, it exists. There is here a picture of the group in Brussels, just the end of the September. It was during our last heat pumps scheme group meeting. To come back to the secretariat, it is important to understand also the role of the secretariat for the heat pump KEYMARK. Our three main objectives are to have the recognition at the European level, because the CEN objective through the KEYMARK again is to have a harmonized certification market. Definitely to be and stay away from a fragmentation of the certification market, which can damage the market itself in terms of delaying and in terms of financial burden that you may have if you have to certify for different countries. So our main objective is to really keep the line of the KEYMARK, let's say, state of mind, spirit, and objective is to have a harmonized scheme. So we are working in different countries to make sure that the KEYMARK is recognized, is established, and to discuss on how to implement the scheme within the existing regulation or the existing rule or the existing requirements. The second part is really linked to the first one, is really to make the KEYMARK as a brand recognized by a regulator, by a consumer, by anyone on the market, or an installer. So the brand needs to be recognized as such, but also as a synonym of quality and to establish the confidence that the heat pump you put on the market, that you are installing, that you are using in your home or in the industry even, is recognized as a quality mark. The third part of our mission as a secretariat is also to make sure that there is a transparency in the scheme. So we are trying to be as transparent as possible and give access to the information related to the certification in terms of what is the certification, what does it mean to have the KEYMARK, and also to give access to the data. So if you look at a heat pump that is KEYMARK certified, you can access to the performance of this equipment. You can compare easily. You can understand what it means, all these parameters. So this is very important also to make this educational aspect of our mission, is to be transparent, but also to give access to the information related to heat pumps and to certified heat pumps. As I said, the KEYMARK certification is a third-party certification. It means that you will receive a certificate from a third-party certification body, and this certification body is not itself auto-declared the certification body. No, this certification body is accredited according to an ISO standard. It's not our standard. It's not KEYMARK standard. It's not the manufacturer's standard. It's an ISO standard, the ISO 17065. The same for the laboratories. The laboratories are designated by the certification bodies that are empowered by KMO. But these laboratories need to be compliant with ISO 17025 that you are probably familiar with in terms of testing for the KEYMARK. So today, how many certification bodies are involved in the scheme, and how many laboratories? You can see it in this slide. It's very important to see the high participation of laboratories. So we have 30 laboratories that are empowered by 10 certification bodies. These certification bodies are empowered by the KMO, the Key Mark Management Organization. So we have a nice choice on where testing and where certifying the products. These 10 certification bodies and 30 laboratories is also showing how strong and how solid and reliable is the Key Mark certification. This is very important to keep this in mind. So we have here the certification bodies. I'm showing this slide just to give you an idea also on how geographically these certification bodies are implemented, are located, which is very good, also very positive. So you can have a choice to find a certification body that is not so far from where your production or your business located. And the same for the heat pump testing labs. It is clear that you have more than the choice. It's clear that it's a very, very good list of competent and ISO 17025 laboratories. So the certification bodies, these laboratories, as a result, what is the count? What is the result of this scheme? Do we have manufacturers following? How is the return on these 10 certification bodies implemented and this offer of 30 laboratories? Definitely there is not only a demand, but it's a fast growing scheme. So just comparing to last year numbers, we have a 45% on average of growth for the number of certificate holders, with almost 120. We have 119. These certificate holders represent more than 1,800 certificates, covering more than 7,000 models, which is very, very important. And again, a year ago, just deduct 45% of these numbers, and you will find out that the growth is quite, let's say, impressive. I said that it's 45% comparing to last year, but I wanted also to share with you the numbers comparing to when it started back in 2016, where we had 81 new certificates in that year. And last year in 2022, we already reached and exceeded the 300 number of new certificates. And for your information, just for the first semester, we have already 294 certificates just for half of the year. So again, it's a growing. The demand is here, and the Key Mark is really the certificates that the manufacturers are relying on to demonstrate their quality products and penetrates all the markets they wanted to go to. So who is delivering more or less? Just for your information, the certification bodies that are the most active are the Incertco, BRE, RISE, and then you have the Italian ICIME. SZU also is growing. You have Kiwa and finally VDE. These are the main players, let's say, today for the certification. Now I will speak about the certification process and the scheme recognition. As I said again, but I like to repeat this, it's a third-party certification. So it means it's a real certification. You will understand in the item number 5 why it's a real certification. So this is a classical third-party certification. There is an application form step where the manufacturer or the distributor will contact one of the certified bodies that I showed in my previous slides. There is a discussion with the certification body on establishing what are your products to be certified, start to work on the subtypes, the models, and all the families set up to decide what to test and how to test, and for how long to test and what type of tests it will be needed. So it's a very important discussion that you will have with your certification body and with your laboratory that you will choose. So the first step is very important. So is this discussion that you will organize with the certification and the laboratory. Then as soon as all this is cleared and you have your list of products to certify and to test, there will be a factory inspection. So there is an auditor who will go on your production location and proceed with an auditing. From that inspection, you will have also to send some units for testing, and that's where the tests will also start. So you will have the audit done. The testing will be also running in parallel, and the test report and the test report and the audit report will go back to the certification body, who will do a complete review and we look at the compliance and to check if everything was done correctly and nothing was missed, and then we'll deliver certification. Then your product will be certified. It will appear in the official KEYMARK database that I will show you later. I was mentioning number 5 because it's not finished. When you are certified, the year after and the year after and the year after, you will be monitored. So we will continue to inspect your production location. We will continue to do testing if any test needs to be done, and so on. So it's not a one-shot test certification. We do a test and you disappear for 10 years and we don't hear about you. No, there is a continuous monitoring of your certification. So you need to maintain somehow this certification by receiving an audit, by doing testing if needed, and so on. So this is very important. That's what we call a third-party certification. Now, I added this slide recently because some questions are coming about what to do as a manufacturer. So it's important to understand that as a manufacturer, when you will have this discussion with your certification body and the testing laboratory, you will have to enter the parameter of your heat pump that will be checked by the certification body and the laboratory in light of the testing that will take place during your certification process. So you will do part of the work by entering your data, your declarations. It's a declaration, let's say, but all this data will be checked one by one by the certification body before issuing any certificate. So it's important to know that. A second point that I added here in the slides is the option that you can apply for a certification without being the manufacturer. So, or you can apply for certification to use a different brand or to use a different model name. This is possible. This is what we call OBL, its own brand labeling. And if you need more information, you can always contact me and I can explain further, or you go to the website to find this information. Just to tell you that it is a possibility to have a mirror, let's say, a certificate. Now the certification in the KEYMARK heat pump certification recognition at EU level, as I explained originally, and it's still the case, it's a European scheme developed by Europe and by CEN, and the idea was to harmonize the market. And again, the idea is European recognition. It's to show quality through a third party. It's open to all interested parties, and there is an ongoing development. For example, we are expanding the scope of the KEYMARK heat pumps. If there is a new technology, heat pump technology that we need to include, where it can be backed by a European standard, that's where we can include it. So it's a continuous development. Now, in terms of recognition, it's clear that in some countries it's very straightforward, in the UK or in France or in other countries in Eastern Europe where the KEYMARK is used. But we have, for the moment, still discussing. For example, for the Netherlands, we came almost to an agreement. Then we had again to go back to the table of the discussion. So this is an ongoing process. There is also the recognition of the KEYMARK to register in the quality label program. There is also ongoing discussion that are happening now to make it a bit more clear and easier for the certificate holders, the KEYMARK certificate holder, to access this quality label and also to access the Dutch market. It's not an easy task because we have already, if you take the Netherlands, already in place some clear regulations. So we need to align to what is already existing in the Netherlands, and this is where we need to come with sometimes a compromise, or we need to come to an agreement, and it's not that easy. So it is challenging, but we are definitely working on this recognition because that's very important. Again, this recognition is to avoid the fragmentation of the market. If you are, again, as a manufacturer, needs to run after 4 or 5 different certifications, this is where it's a big failure for the market, for the industry, for Europe, for KEYMARK. We will all lose in this story. So that's why we are putting a lot of energy in terms of recognition of the KEYMARK, and a lot of discussions are still ongoing. It's not easy. So if you remember the last point of my secretariat slide is the communication, transparency, access to data. So we have dedicated website where you can find all the listed companies. If you click on the company's name, you will have access to the data, the characteristics, some test results that can be important for you to decide on which product will suit the best your equipment, for an installer to also choose what they need. This website is work in progress, but almost finished. We'll have different languages, so it will be translated in many European languages to again to give access to the installers wherever the installer is located, or a consumer or a regulator who needs to understand what is behind this KEYMARK certificate. It's not only a rubber stamp again. We are also communicating through social media. We are present in main trade shows that you recognize the name in ISH. Mostra will be soon in the Heat Pump Summit in Nuremberg. We are writing articles. We have the members that are engaging with us, and we have also advertising campaign. This is to say that anytime you want to be involved in any of these activities, you can contact Danaé or myself, and we can facilitate and see how we can work together to make the KEYMARK visible, your product visible, anything that we can do to support. My last slide is it's important, I think, to recall that the third-party certification, it's very simple. It facilitates the purchasing decision. It's clear that a consumer will pay more. I can't recall what was the percentage. Sometimes it's up to 30% more if the product is certified. So it's clear that having a third-party certification can only help you to ease your entrance as a manufacturer in the markets. The KEYMARK can be also in some situations giving access to subsidies in some countries, in UK, in France. Any subsidies that are coming can be backed by KEYMARK because it's a solid certification scheme. And finally, this is not a club. This is an open scheme. All stakeholders can participate, can comment, can propose modification, changes, and can discuss it. So you are welcome anytime. Thank you for listening to me, and I guess the questions will come later.
Thank you, Tarik, indeed. And we already have some questions, but keep adding any more questions you have in the chat. We will answer them at the end. I would like to maybe view the results of the poll. We had some more questions coming, more input coming in, and it looks like we're coming from a lot of different places, mostly in Europe, so great. I will now move to the next presentation, and this one is from Ivan Malenković from the Fraunhofer Institute. He will be giving us a perspective from the testing labs. So Ivan, if you'd like to take control, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Danaé. Thank you for your kind introduction. My name is Ivan Malenković, and I'm the head of the team test lab heat pumps and chillers at the Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy Systems in Freiburg, Germany. And well, this is something that symbolizes what I'm mostly doing in my time. Actually, I'm looking at different standards. I'm looking at documentation regarding our accreditation, reviewing, changing, and so on. So yeah, this is, I think, what depicts the best was what most of my daily work actually is. So I will actually, in my presentation, I will try to sketch what a test lab really needs to be qualified for heat pump KEYMARK testing. Some of requirements were already addressed by Tarik. Then I will explain shortly what are the benefits of and requirements for an accredited laboratory according to ISO 7025. I will make a short introduction into the normative landscape behind the testing. So what type of tests do we use? How do we perform them? And so on. And finally, I will show a few examples of, let's say, common challenges. Some of them maybe not so common, but still interesting challenges when testing real heat pump in a test lab. So first requirement to become a heat pump KEYMARK test lab is to have an accreditation according to ISO 7025. This is a third-party accreditation, what Tarik already said, and it is, well, let's say this is like the main thing that you need as a test lab. After that, once you're accredited, you have to contact some of the empowered certification bodies. We saw there are 10 of them you want to cooperate with. And you have to get a positive assessment from them and to sign a contract, which is then sent to the heat pump KEYMARK management. And after they have accepted you as a test lab, you are listed on their website and with all your contact details. And this is publicly accessible on the Heat Pump KEYMARK website. Once you have been recognized, you have to actively participate in the HP KEYMARK scheme group. You have to discuss all the changes, where the Heat Pump KEYMARK is going to. Tarik already said it's actually a scheme, it's not a club. So everything is public. And you also have to work and to cooperate in the so-called network meetings for the test lab. This is the test lab peer group, where the representatives of all the accepted test labs discuss some technical points, some changes in standard, some issues which are of common interest, and so on, which provides actually the common understanding of the test procedures of some maybe interesting things which are not so common and which attributes to more repeatability of the results of all the test labs. In order to ensure the quality of the results, the heat pump KEYMARK steering committee can ask a laboratory to perform a round-robin test with another recognized laboratory just to see if the results match, and if not, what could be the problem. All these requirements and some more informations are stated in Annex H of the Heat Pump KEYMARK regulation, which you can also find among other documents at the Heat Pump KEYMARK website. So what does it really mean to be accredited according to ISO 7025? Well, the ISO 7025 gives you the general requirements for the competence of testing and calibration laboratories. What you have to have is an implemented and well-documented quality management system with clear processes which follow the relevant standards you have been accredited for. And you also have to show traceable changes. That means if something in your processes change, if something in the standard, in some testing procedure changes, you have to have it in your documentation. You have to have traceable changes in your documentation so that you can trace back results that you have been, let's say, done, that you have, let's say, a result of a testing that you have done maybe 10 years ago. After 10 years, you still have to be able to trace back what have you been doing at that time. It's a third-party accreditation, which means that people come to your place, auditors, and they discuss with you, with you specific technical and organizational issues. And you also have to show them your workflow systems, which of course includes also complaints, meaning that every complaint that you receive from your customer cannot stay unanswered. You have to find the solution to this, and this has to be documented. Out of this, you can then propose some changes and advancements in your system. On the right-hand side, you see, let's say, the 10 main principles of the ISO 7025. Starting with capacity, which means that you need to have human and technical resources to fulfill all the requirements of the test procedures you've been accredited for. You need to have a clear job description of every employee. You have to have a hierarchy within this accredited body. So you need to have a responsible person which stands behind the results. Your work has to be based on accepted scientific approaches, which means that your results have to be based on measurable and derived quantities obtained by trained persons, which gives you the objective results. The persons involved in the testing do not have to have any financial or any other interest in the results. So impartiality of conduct has to be secured. All, as I said, results have to be traceable, which means that there should be no holes in the measurement chain, and all parts of this measurement chain from the point of entry, of the heat pump into the lab until the report has been sent to the customer have to be documented. You need to have a repeatability of the test, meaning that the methods you use will deliver always the same results, of course, within accepted deviations. I will talk about this a little bit later. And finally, the whole process and all these things, your documentation have to be transparent, which means that they are also open to external entities for checks. So once you're, I think in the last webinar, Mario Reinbold already told you about what are the requirements within the HP KEYMARK certification procedures regarding testing. I will not repeat this once again, but here you can see a list, and you will receive also this presentation. What kind of tests are attributed to which standards? On the next slide, I will just show you the number of standards that we use. So in total, we have 9 standards, 6 for electrically driven and hybrid heat pumps, and 3 for gas-driven heat pumps, with a total number of 1,300 pages, roughly. You can also see that these standards are being revised, well, let's say every 3 to 6 years. Some of the revisions are more, let's say, minor, but some of the revisions also introduced completely new technologies or testing methods, which means here you can see the attribution of the standards to the 3 different technologies that Heat Pump KEYMARK is referring to. These are electrically driven heat pumps, hybrid heat pumps, and gas heat pumps. You can also see that the gas heat pumps have their own standards, while electrically driven and hybrid heat pumps share most of the standards, even though some of the standards are typical only for electrically driven or hybrid heat pump. This is a lot of standards, but let's say we can break the test methodologies into only a couple of them. So all these standards, being for electrically driven hybrid or gas heat pumps, use more or less the same methodology for the performance testing and also for domestic hot water testing. So let's say hydronic systems would be tested according to the water enthalpy method, which means that you evaluate the heating capacity and the COP or the EER, so the efficiency of the heat pump or the chiller, from the supply temperature, the return temperature, and the mass flow. So from the energy output of the heat pump, and then the energy input, electricity or gas into the heat pump, and so on. I will not go into the details. So you can see that some of the types, like water-to-water heat pump, brine-to-water heat pump, or direct expansion heat pump, and also gas heat pumps, share the same methodology of testing. However, all these standards, with some minor exceptions, as I said, share the same methodology, but as there are so many different kinds and subtypes and control mechanisms that these heat pumps are working with, the problem is in the detail. Meaning that you have to know really a lot of details in each of these standards. Like, let's say, if you have a ducted or not ducted heat pump, if you have a staged or inverter control heat pump, in the gas heat pumps, if you have an adsorption or absorption heat pump, and so on. So all these details about the correct course of testing are scattered all around the standards, and one has really to know a lot of these details and where to find them to be able to put together the entire course of testing as prescribed by the standard, from the installation to the final result. So let's say, as a consequence, you really need a very skilled, a very experienced person to do so, to be really able to say, okay, this test has been done to the last detail according to the standard, and also to perform a repeatable measurement. So besides having to have a comprehensive knowledge about the test methodology, about documentation of your procedures, and so on, the test labs are also facing with changing market. So the controllers are getting ever more complex, which means that you need to have some special equipment, special software, and a lot of support sometimes from the manufacturer in order to run your heat pump the way that, let's say, the standard has prescribed. You have control strategies, some of which are not explicitly covered by standards. So you have to make the heat pump do something it is not being built for, in order to have the right test result. We are facing new technologies such as hybrid heat pumps, including gas measurements, which is for many labs a new chapter, and it requires a lot of knowledge about how really to do these measurements correctly. We have new appliance configurations. More and more heat pumps have indoor and outdoor unit. Indoor unit consisting maybe sometimes with a buffer tank. So how to cope with these things. The standards, as I said, are being often updated and changed. And finally, right away, there are new test methods, completely new test methods under development and currently in discussion in the relevant standardization committees. I will give you, as I said, the last point of my agenda was to show you a couple of examples of what we are sometimes facing, what are the challenges. So here you can see the supply temperature and the return temperature of air-to-water heat pump. And these three colored areas are actually the three phases of a test. The last one, the orange one, being actually the data acquisition period. So this is actually where the heat pump then is being evaluated for its capacity and the efficiency from its supply and return temperature. If these supply temperatures and also return temperatures stay within a certain tolerance band, you can say this has been a steady state measurement. So no occurrence, no interruptions in the measurement, like for example, here you can see two defrost cycles are within, so you completed your measurement. However, what can happen here is that you have some super cycles induced by the control system, which cannot be seen here, but it can happen. If you are at the test point, let's say air temperature 7 degrees, and the control unit has exactly 7 degrees as the point where the ventilator will change its speed from one to another, it can happen that your ventilator speed is not constant. If you're a little bit below 7 degrees, it will go, let's say, to a higher speed and so on and so on. So you have some instationary things going on, which you cannot detect so easily from your measurement, especially if you have automated systems. You can have sometimes the three-way valve switches from heating to domestic hot water. This is something you also have to detect. So there are a lot of issues where you really need to have very good surveillance of your test procedures to be at the end able to have a really valid result at the end, even with the most simple of all, most simple measurements of all, which is this steady state measurement. This here is a diagram which shows transient measurement, which means that it includes also defrost cycles. Again, these defrost cycles can happen in different phases of the measurement. They are also, let's say, it can happen that your evaporator has not been completely defrosted before. So in one measurement, you will get one efficiency of the heat pump. The next measurement might have another efficiency, deliver another efficiency. So it means that you really have to put a lot of effort, a lot of knowledge to know how a heat pump reacts and what to do exactly to have a completely valid result as prescribed by the standard. A very hot topic is sound power measurement, and we can see from this diagram here, which was made by one colleague of mine, from the data of a huge number of heat pumps we collected. You can see that in the past roughly 10 years, you can see these two lines here showing that actually the sound power of the heat pumps, these are air-to-water heat pumps, have been decreasing over the past years, up to, let's say, on average about 8 decibel. This is a very good news for the manufacturers. It's even a better news for the users and even their neighbors. But this is actually something that puts an extra challenge on test institutes. So for air-to-water heat pumps, this area of about 50 decibels is not a problem. But if you have internal units which consist only of a circulating pump, some controls and valves and piping, then you can, the noise level of these these parts of the heat pump are so low that the test institutes really have to put a lot of effort to be able to do a correct measurement on this. So this is really a challenge in some cases. Then we have, as I said, hybrid heat pumps, which put some new, let's say, impose some new skills like gas measurement, but also they impose a challenge when it comes to controlling them, because the current test standards prescribe that we should overrun the control and set some fixed values for the gas burner, for the compressor. Sometimes it is very hard to reach the right parameter of the controller unit, because even though they have a joint controls, each of the components, the heat pump and the fuel boiler, might have their own controls, and sometimes we really need a lot of support from the manufacturers in order to be able to do so. Also, because hybrid heat pumps can be operated so the heat delivery from one or the other components of the hybrid heat pump, they can have different parts. So depending on how you set the heat pump controller, how you set the prices of the electricity or the gas, how you set if you want to have more comfort, if you don't care about money so much or the CO2 emissions, the heat pump, so the hybrid heat pump will act in a different way, will perform differently. So a lot of knowledge again is needed to have a valid and a repeatable result at the end. Finally, as I said, a new test procedure is being developed. And behind this, the rationale of this procedure is not to exclude the appliances controls from the measurement, but to include them. So to let the unit run with its own controls. What a test lab needs to do is to, let's say, impose a certain heating or cooling load to the appliance and to control it by the test facility. So you impose a fixed heating or cooling load and you let your heat pump run, which leads to quite instationary behavior of the heat pump in the especially in the some part load conditions. Which needs that, again, you need some extra skills, and you also need to use some inertia, some building loads, which is a model. So building load is being given to the test lab as a model, as a building model, which gives you the inertia, and it simulates the inertia of the real house, but it also gives the inertia to the hydraulic system of your test rig control. This means that in most cases, a higher level of test and automatization is needed. This is still not a current test method, but as I said, this might be the future of testing. So this is also something that we will maybe have to face in the next future. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I'll be glad to answer your questions afterwards at the end of the webinar.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for this clear presentation, and thank you for taking us through the details of what happens during testing. It's really, really insightful. I will take control back because it's actually time for our break. So I know this is a lot of information to take in, and we have some more insightful presentations to share with you later. So I suggest we take 10 minutes, go grab a coffee or some tea, go get some fresh air, and we'll meet you in 10 minutes. Okay, we still have a few minutes before we start, but I have sent a poll in the chat. It should have popped up on your screen, otherwise you can find it in the polls section. It's at the top of your screen, and I see we have some responses already. So my question was, what topics are you covering in your daily job? So I'm not surprised to see that there's a lot of certification, energy certification, HVAC certification, and an energy labeling. So feel free to add more answers. Okay, so testing, renewable heat pump, pump compliance converter, control design. Interesting to see what you are also up to in your daily tasks. Okay, I think we can slowly get started with the next presentation. I hope that you enjoyed your break. Hope that you're excited to start again, and we are ready to get into the second half of the webinar. So Mélanie Auvray, our colleague from EHPA, from the policy team, will now present the heat pump key mark and how it's linked to Ecodesign and EU regulations. So Mélanie, if you'd like to take control.
Yes, thank you, Danaé. So taking control of the slide. Good morning, everybody. So I'm just changing the slide to go directly to what I wanted to present to you. So as Danaé said earlier, I'm part of the policy team that advocates and promote awareness. We also create an environment that facilitates the faster deployment of heat pump in the EU. So you may have seen REPowerEU, the heat pump action plan, or what EHP also advocated for, the heat pump accelerator. This is on our website if you're interested into these topics. I have also one of my colleagues working specifically on F-gas development. This is also information that you can access on our website. And I'm personally responsible for Ecodesign energy labeling that may seem very technical sometimes. And as you can see on the slide, there is a photo of us meeting in a stakeholder meeting. Here we were not so many because it was a specific topic, but most of the time we are like double or three times of the amount of people and really going into the details that may sound too technical, but it's really important for the manufacturers to improve the performance of their products, but also important for the consumer so that they can choose their the best products on the market. And I think, Danaé, you have something for me. A poll.
Yes, so I will close it so you can see the response details. So 38% said they were very familiar with Ecodesign, 52% yes, but only the basics for heat pumps, and then only 10% said no.
Okay, it's a good, good audience then. Well, maybe starting also from the beginning for those that are not familiar with Ecodesign. So what is Ecodesign and what is it for? So on one side, you have Ecodesign that is here to improve the environmental performance of the products. It requires manufacturers to decrease the energy consumption of their products by establishing minimum energy standard. And every review of the regulation, Ecodesign eliminates the least performing products from the markets, and so improving our energy and climate targets. But also on the second side, so in parallel of that work, you have the energy label that comes second, and we still work in parallel of it, and which conveyed information on energy efficiency, the sound, and the most important information for the consumers. And this information, of course, are defined via the Ecodesign, and then we convey them with the energy label. So the energy label is per se a key driver for helping a consumer to choose the most energy efficient products, as I was saying earlier. And at the same time, it's really important because it drives and it encourages manufacturers to improve their products via innovation. This is really important. And as you can see on the slide, we have two labels. I put two labels, the current one that we are using at the moment and the draft label that we are working on, so for the new and upcoming regulation. So I will talk about it a bit later. Also, important point that you may want to see is the EPREL database. The EPREL database is the product registry database where you will find all products and be able to compare them all. So if you type on Google EPREL, then you will find this website created by the Commission last year, and that is public, and that you can review any type of products, energy-related products, so going from the washing machine to the heat pumps, and that you can compare. But okay, now we're going a bit more into the details and explaining how does it work. So basically, I like to call them the mother. We have the Ecodesign directive, that is the mother directive. And with that, you will have regulation per product regulation, per energy product groups. So for instance, washing machine, fridge, or here, as you can see on the screen, specifically for EHPA heat pumps. So you will have the lot 1 for the space heaters, the lot 2 for the water heaters, and the lot 10 for air conditioning appliances. And these different regulations, these different lots define specific requirements for the products. So it will be specified per products. And the directive just give the general direction, the general requirements, and how we're supposed to work to define the product regulation. And it's the same logic that goes with the Energy Labeling Framework Regulation. It gives you this basic requirements, and then we define the requirements per product groups individually. And so as EHPA, we focus on that product groups. I have a slide that goes here, but I think it's not necessary. I just talked about it now. These product groups are reviewed every 5 years after the entry into force of the regulation, and right now we are reviewing this free regulation that you have seen on the slide. So in terms of requirements, what you will find in this these regulations, so you have, of course, the minimum energy efficiency requirements that would be placed on specific heaters and on average conditions. You may have heard this minimum requirements of 115% for all heaters. This is basically what we call the phasing out of boilers by September 2029. This is only a draft proposal for the moment of the Commission, and it has been made a lot of noise around. So this is exactly where the discussion takes place, is in the Ecodesign lot 1, so for space heaters. So this is it. You have also maximum sound power requirements, so maximum sound that the unit can produce. You have, of course, information requirements. So here we are talking about the instruction manual or the technical documentation that has to do with the conformity assessments. And something new that is coming with the new regulation is actually the material efficiency requirements. So here we are talking about a list of spare parts that has to be accessible, a maximum delivery time requirements, access to repair and maintenance information, the definition of this professional repairer that will have to do the reparation. So this is the type of requirements and discussion that we have in Ecodesign. And in parallel, as I was saying, we have the energy label. Energy label, well, we are in the energy label regulation defining the energy efficiency class, A to G, the layout of the label that you see on the screen. We are also defining the type of information that you will find in the product information sheet, the technical documentation, and then also, of course, the obligation to supplier to enter the information on the product database EPREL. There is two sides, the compliance side that is done for the market surveillance authorities to check the information, and the public side where the consumer can compare the products since spring 2022. So after all of this, the Ecodesign directive set an Ecodesign requirements related to environmental parameters, and that the manufacturers have to meet to carry the CE marking. And so before placing the product on the market, a CE marking must be put in on the product, along with the declaration of conformity issued by the manufacturer. And so this is one step, but you have also, aside of that, the conformity assessment. Conformity assessment has to do also before placing the product on the market. So the manufacturer should carry this assessment of the product conformity to all relevant requirements, and the conformity procedure has to be defined in the implementing measures. So what you see on the screen is specifically for the lot 1 on space heater, because it's the most known lot in Ecodesign that I took this example. So what does it mean for the lot 1 space heaters? So the conformity assessment procedure is an internal control. The manufacturers establish the product fiche and verify that the product respects all requirements of the lot 1, the regulation for space heater. And then market surveillance authority eventually may verify that the product respects the requirements. So this is the state of play for now. And what is the place of KEYMARK into this eco-design? Well, KEYMARK, as Tarik explained earlier, so KEYMARK is an independent third-party certification. It's a voluntary scheme that supports the quality and the performance of heat pump. It's completely a voluntary step that prove the conformity of the products and that the manufacturer choose on top of what they are already doing for eco-design, and that help, of course, the quality, the trust of the trust into the quality of their products. But of course, it helps them also sometimes to, in some countries, to access the public subsidies. So all this advantage that Tarik was highlighting before, and I believe that Laurent will later on also explain the manufacturer side and furthermore benefit to the KEYMARK. So as I was saying, this is the situation for today. But for now, we are working. I am personally working on the review of the lot 1 on space heating, but also the lot 2 on water heatings. And at the same time, it's another discussion, but the lot 10 on air conditioning appliances. And we have been working on this review of the lot 1 since 2017, so it's quite a while. If you haven't followed the development of this eco-design, I recommend that you have a look at our website and look at our position paper on our website with the recommendation. In case you don't find it, don't hesitate to contact me via emails. There is also my contact details at the end of this presentation, and we can walk you through. For now, we are at the stage where the final draft regulation should be published by the end of the year, or Q1 24, so beginning of next year. And it should be adopted shortly after this. The Commission is still working on final technical details, and of course the discussion of the phase out of fossil fuel boilers by September 29. And this takes a bit of time. But for today, I don't want to enter into much details with you in this draft regulation. We have actually an EU project that is working on this aspect to explain what is coming to your side. And I will explain later this EU project that may help you into diving into the review of eco-design. But for now, specifically KEYMARK, I wanted to talk to you about the third-party conformity assessment. So as I was explaining earlier, some member states ask for additional information or requests for certification, and this may disturb this single market. Why are they asking that? Most of the time is for subsidies program. So as Tarik was explaining earlier, UK and France, but also other member states are doing so. But also sometimes there is a lack of trust into the self-declaration, so they are asking for additional steps. So the Commission has seen this, and they recommend to have a third-party conformity assessment mandatory part of the Lot 1 review. Their first proposal is the one that you see on the screen. It's just a first draft proposal, and is to have the same certification modules as the boilers that they have today. Of course, it is not their final proposal. It remains to see what they will decide on that point. But what I can tell you already is that among the stakeholders, there were many requests from the point of delaying the implementation of this, what we call TPCA, so third-party conformity assessment, to 2029, so later to have the time to implement it and to prepare for it, and also limiting it to only the products of the Lot 1 under the scope of 70 kilowatts. And also one of the key recommendations that was made by the stakeholder to the Commission is to consult the KEYMARK scheme, so to build on the KEYMARK certification. Having a third-party conformity assessment for the Commission may be beneficial in the sense that it will support the market surveillance authorities, but also it may reduce the potential need of private and national schemes. And so they want to have something that is more general. But also, of course, they know that it may also bring some other disadvantage, like the fact that for the moment we have a limited accredited labs capacity, so it will be difficult to have it on all products of the Lot 1. Also, there is a certain uncertainties whether if the member state building codes and the member state incentive schemes that are already now on the market will accept the checked value from the TPCA and not insist on their existing schemes and the existing way of working. And so all of that may possibly discourage the existing certification scheme or not, depending on the member state decision, and schemes like KEYMARK. But this is in a very, very, very long run, because we are talking for the moment 2029, and we are not even sure that this is something that will be put into place, and even to what extent. So taking into account this, the Commission has made also a second alternative options that you can see on the screen. This is also only a draft proposal for discussion with the group. This is not the final, and we don't know yet what will be the final decision with the Commission. So this, taking into account the testing cost and the private certification that is generally enough to increase the trust into the data, the second option that they propose is to have the module 2, accredited labs, having only a certain number of testing points added to the current one. And of course, as I was saying earlier, they also think that there should be a later introduction than the current introduction that we are talking about with the Lot 1, so later 29. All of this to say that while we see with this new discussion in the Lot 1 that certification scheme like KEYMARK may face some uncertainties in the long run, like the really long run, we are talking about 29 and even maybe further. I believe personally, and this is also on the next slide, that the KEYMARK has a really key role to play in the fast rollout of heat pump. A key role because here we have REPowerEU, an ambitious target of 6 million additional heat pumps by 2030. And KEYMARK is here to help in having the subsidies granted and also having trust into the technology. And in the meantime, while we are talking about TPCA mandatory part of the Lot 1, KEYMARK still have a major key role to help us in the deployment of heat pumps. So this is a bit of Ecodesign development review right now. But if I may, and if I still have a bit of time, I have also something, as I was saying earlier, So as I was saying, we have a EU-funded project that is called Compliance Services, and the full title is Services Supporting Supplier and Retailers Regarding the Compliance of Ecodesign and Energy Labeling. This is a live funding project. It will last for 42 months. We have 13 partners, including 7 different countries. And the main objective of this project that is really important for you and for the eco-design bubble is that it aims to increase awareness, understanding of the energy labeling and the eco-design regulation for the supplier, retailers, installers, and also for other stakeholders working around eco-design and energy labeling. This project will provide you tools supporting the clarification of the issue and the question around the regulation. So we are talking about guidelines, FAQ, things that you already know for the current regulation, but that will be updated and improved for the next review. We will also provide training tools, services to suppliers and to retailers. Additionally to also more information on April, more advocacy on April. And yeah, it's only the start of this project. We have had our first meeting actually in September. But if you're really interested into this project and you also need help in understanding what is coming up with the eco-design, Lot 1 for space heater, Lot 2 for water heaters, or Lot 10 air conditioning appliances, this is something that we are going to work with this compliance services, and don't hesitate to contact me if you're interested in following this work. And as my colleague Danaé put it, we have also a slot for you, a poll. And I think this is it for me, Danaé. I talked a lot.
Thank you, Mélanie. Thank you for this thorough presentation and for highlighting the link between KEYMARK and the European regulations. So far for the poll on asking for interest in this project, I see quite a high interest. So I think you'll be contacted after this webinar for sure. I would also like to open another poll also on Mélanie's presentation. There we go. And you can add your input. And of course, if you have any other questions, again, add them in the chat and we can answer them at the end with Mélanie. Okay, so let's move along. I'll take the control back. Thank you so much, Mélanie, again. And here you can find Mélanie's contacts if you'd like to directly write her an email. So we are a bit behind in the schedule, but I'm sure that Laurent will catch up without any problem. So I will introduce you to Laurent Bénédit. He is a regulatory monitoring manager at Groupe Atlantic, and today he will present the side of the manufacturers, of the certificate holders. So Laurent will start your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I work for Groupe Atlantic, and I'm in charge of monitoring regulation for hydronic heat pumps, meaning that air-to-air heat pumps are not in the scope of my daily job. So first of all, I would suggest to start with a few facts and figures about my company. So Groupe Atlantic is a French manufacturer, which has been created in Vendée, which is west of France, in 1968. The company is now a European leader in HVAC sector and is strongly committed to the low carbon transition. The group is present all over Europe under 22 brands. Our turnover was roughly 3.2 billion euros in 2022. And currently we have 25 internal laboratories, 31 factories, 21 training centers, and we manufacture more or less each year 10 million products thanks to 13,000 employees worldwide. In 2022, 30% of revenue came from the heat pump activity, including 16% from the air-to-water heat pump business. And with the pathway to decarbonization, we trust that in 2030, 50% of the turnover should come directly from the heat pump activity. So why, as manufacturer, do we need a certification for air-to-water heat pump? From our point of view, three main reasons to have a certification. Firstly, we think that we have to guarantee to our customers the quality of the products with an independent control of quality, and of course, by maintaining quality over the time. Secondly, promote their performance. From a point of view, certification is a quality process that is important and also visible for the market. It is also for us a way to differentiate our company from the competitors. And thirdly, we fight from the beginning to have a European certification applicable to heat pumps. For us, it is a way to create trust in the marketplace all over Europe. And as these products have to meet requirements to be put on the market since September 2015, as explained previously by Mélanie, it is key that the criteria covered by the certification are in the scope of Ecodesign. And last point, of course, it's also a way to open up new markets in Europe as soon as the concerned member states recognize the European certification at its own national level. And that's a key question. Why, as a manufacturer, did we choose HP KEYMARK? Several reasons, for this non-regret choice. Firstly, the scope of the scheme, which by covering all space heating heat pumps, combination heat pumps, and heat pump water heaters under Ecodesign, it is fully in line with our market. Our aim is to have one single certificate recognized in all European member states in order to avoid any additional testing based on specific national rules. We get one single certificate focused on energy efficiency and sound power level, which is directly available online for interested parties, such as member state, engineering office, installer, wholesaler, or eventually end user. And a key driver is also that the certification is based on using test points from Ecodesign, and that national EPBD calculations use these figures as key inputs. I will develop later on this point. A crucial point is also that HP KEYMARK is based on an independent third party for testing. Of course, as explained by Ivan previously, with a testing laboratory which has to be recognized, but which is chosen by the manufacturer and not imposed by the scheme rules. So it's a key point, very important from the manufacturer point of view. And the same logic applies for the CB, because the certificates are granted by independent certification bodies, but the CB is also chosen by the manufacturer and not imposed by the scheme rules. Today, HP KEYMARK is accepted by 10 participating certification bodies, as explained by Tarik. So as manufacturer, it gives us some flexibility and it leads to reduce the time to market because we have the choice in terms of certification bodies. The HP KEYMARK scheme is owned by the CEN, so it helps us to give visibility to this program, as the KEYMARK is recognized by over many products which are used in buildings all over Europe. A key element is probably that we have a very well-balanced mode of governance, because heat pump steering committee can make suggestions where all representatives of stakeholders are present, and that's a key point. We meet several times per year to decide on open issue and next step in the scheme development. And we also make suggestions for voting to the heat pump scheme group. The heat pump scheme group is the highest decision-making body in the scheme. It takes decision on its development and is open to all interested parties. And usually, the heat pump scheme group meets 2 times per year. Now I suggest to have a more detailed look about the content. So for space heating, we have several criteria which are directly related to eco-design, because in the scope we cover sun power level for the indoor and the outdoor unit, space heating energy efficiency, bivalent temperature, and the operation limit temperature. And all these certified data help to prove that heat pumps comply with the eco-design requirements. EHPA energy efficiency for space heating has to be above 110% for air-to-water heat pump medium temperature, or above 125 for low temperature for air-to-water heat pump. The bivalent temperature has to be below or equal to Celsius degrees, and TOL value must be below or equal to -7. On the other hand, all these certified data can also have to prove that heat pumps comply with national requirements to get subsidies. For instance, in France, if you want to get subsidies for air-to-water heat pump medium temperature, you have to prove that the energy efficiency for space heating is above 111% for the medium temperature regime. On the other hand, we can also use this data for the national EPBD calculation. For instance, in France, we can use the space heating test according EN 41511 and the power standby according to EN 14825. So by using the certified data from the HP KEYMARK certificates and by following the national guidelines, which are in place in France, we can create matrix of performance for space heating heat pump. So we can say in a certain way that Heat Pump KEYMARK helps to get direct access to the French market for air-to-water heat pump. And last but not least, the validity for the certificate is currently 10 years. On the next slide, we can see the benefits for the water heating. So water heating energy efficiency helps to prove that combi heat pump comply with eco-design requirements. And in the same way, by using the certified data from HP KEYMARK and by using a French national tool, which is available online, you can also create matrix of performance for water heating heat pump. So at the end, we get 3 useful values: COP, yeah, for the domestic hot water, the thermal losses of the storage tank, and the energy input. And these 3 values can directly be used in the French EPBD calculation methodology. For the national EPBD calculation that applies in Netherlands, NTA 8800, HP KEYMARK also provides application sheets with the agreements of the Netherlands authorities to allow and to explain how to use the data coming from the HP KEYMARK certificate as input data for NTA 8800. In terms of commitments, several departments and many persons are directly or indirectly involved in HP KEYMARK. First of all, R&D department, which is directly committed in testing, assessment, and certification of products. And at the same time, of course, the production plants, which have to maintain a product-rated factory production control which is based on the standard ISO 991. We're also very happy to have, for a few months, an internal laboratory located in France, which has been registered as a testing laboratory for HP KEYMARK, and which is recognized by the certification body RISE. For the prescription department, HP KEYMARK certificates are also directly used for our internal database BART, which is used by engineering office. And for the marketing department, certificates are also used for catalogs and leaflets. For HP scheme group, we join as a certificates holder. And for the HP steering committee, I attend the meetings as a representative of the certificate holders. We meet several times a year, and from a point of view, even if we pay for a service, it seems normal to be part of it. In a certain way, I would say we meet together, so we stick together. In terms of number of certificates, we currently hold 174 certificates, mainly for air-to-water heat pump and mainly for domestic appliances. So this figure represents more or less 10% of the total number of certificates in the HP KEYMARK database. What we foresee is that for the next coming years, we probably will have an evolution towards hybrid heat pump certificates, because hybrid heat pumps should become a new product category in the Ecodesign regulation. So this family should increase the number of certificates in the database. Last point, currently, from our point of view, the next challenge for HP KEYMARK for sure will be to have a full recognition in all European countries. The first topic, which is ongoing discussion, concerns the fact to reach a full recognition in Netherlands for space heating, but also for domestic hot water. We need both use. And the second topic is about Austria and Switzerland, because our deal is also to reach an operating recognition without additional testing, in these two countries. So we really hope that the both ongoing discussion will lead to a success story in Netherlands and Austria and Switzerland. That's it for me. I thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much, Laurent, for sharing your perspective as a certified manufacturer. And I'm sure we have a few people representing manufacturers today, which leads me to my last poll, our last poll for today. We would like to know, what entity do you represent? Where do you come from? Is it a certification body, a testing laboratory? As I said, I'm sure there's a lot of manufacturers today, maybe some already certified manufacturers by Heat Pump KEYMARK. Or are you a consultant, or do you belong to a different group? Let us know. And I will let you submit your responses. And move on to the last part of today's webinar. So this is your time to ask your questions in the chat, whether it's for the last presentation given by Laurent or any of the other speakers. Don't forget to mention the name of the person you would like to answer your question. And I think we already have a few in the chat, so we'll take a look at those. But I also wanted to see some of your answers. Okay, so as predicted, a lot of manufacturers, some testing laboratories, a few already certified HEPA manufacturers. A really varied group. That's nice. Okay, so I'll take a look at the questions. Okay, so the first one is for Tarik's presentation in the beginning. Someone asked, how can I enter the scheme or steering group?
Okay. Thank you, Danaé. Thank you for asking this question. The steering group represents different categories of stakeholders. So you have the manufacturers, you have the laboratories, the certification body. You need to present to the steering committee your application, and there will be a vote to access to the steering committee. So yes, you can apply. You need to specify for which category you want to be you want to represent, and you can present your application. And there is a cycle of every 5 years. There is a vote. There is a vote coming next year for the steering committee and the scheme group. So you can present your application to be representing one of these groups. If you need more information, you can contact me if I'm unclear.
Thank you, Tarik. And I believe we have another question for you. How do you manage to avoid small differences in KEYMARK rules interpretation between certification bodies? For example, some certification body asks to have the registration numbers in the manuals, others don't. Some ask to have the certification body's number on the type plate, others don't, etc.
Okay. It's also a good question, and the steering committee, as I just explained, we have peer groups. So we have a peer group covering the certification bodies. So the certification bodies are meeting through this peer group, within this peer group, and they discuss all the points that can represent indeed an interpretation or an unclarity in the standard or a requirement. So this is a very good example that I will take today to the peer group for certification body to discuss about this difference in interpretation in terms of marking on the data plate of a product. So I will today address this point. So it will be at the peer group, in this case, certification body, to address this. And this is how we maintain a consistency within the certification bodies. We have another peer group covering inspection and testing. The same, they meet and they discuss any differences, interpretation on how to perform an audit, on what information to collect. They harmonize forms to collect information they need prior to an audit, for example, and so on. So the peer groups will address this, and they continuously through the year organizing meetings online or in person sometimes even, and they discuss all these points to be addressed. And this point will be on their next list for sure. And thank you for bringing this one.
Great, thank you, Tarik. Someone asked, can or may a heat pump manufacturer who has a lab accredited in accordance with EN 17025 test their own products or provide third-party testing? Now, there's no specific speaker mentioned for this, but I don't know if maybe Ivan, can you answer this question?
I'm sorry, that goes too much into the policy, so I'm not really.
Yeah,
I come from a test lab, so.
Okay. No problem. It's you mentioned earlier, Ivan, Annex H in one of your slides, so that's how I know the answer. The Annex H is the annex covering the recognition of the labs, the laboratories. So yes, the first condition is to be ISO 17025, but not only. You need to have in the scope of your ISO 17025 all the EN standards that were that are used to do the testing. This is the first, of course, obvious. You need to have the references in your scope of your 17025, and you will need indeed to be recognized by a certification body. So you can agree with the certification body on how they will monitor, because the certification body will ask you to have in place a quality system specifically for testing for the KEYMARK certification. So the answer is yes. And you can already have an idea by looking at the Annex H that is available online for the KEYMARK rules. Annex H, you can find the information. But the answer is yes, you can.
Great, thank you, Tarik. We have a couple more questions, but in the meantime, I just wanted to share this with you because I see there is a lot of questions on different topics. So if you'd like to provide your input and help us improve the next webinar, you can scan this QR code and fill out the form. It takes about 5 minutes. So this will allow you to address any other issues or questions you may have in our upcoming webinars. And I will move to the next question. When you have to manage second source component on existing certified products, why can't you fine-tune your appliance, to confirm the performances? Adding second sources components is a challenge, especially in the one-off program. Now, I don't know if this is a question one of you can answer or if it's also too technical.
I am not sure to understand, in fact, the proposal on how we can fine-tune your appliance to confirm the performances. So, yeah, I'm not sure to understand the question, in fact.
In this case, to the person who asked this question, I think it's Annick Marin. Feel free to contact us. I will move on to the slide with the contact so you can detail your question a bit more via email. Then there's another question, because it's a voluntary program, can you confirm that we can certify what we want as a manufacturer? There is no obligation to certify all the products catalog or all the products linked to an HPK certified one. So voluntary means that it's up to the manufacturer's freedom to decide if they want to be certified or not, to get access to the different benefits, whether it's subsidies or being able to sell the products in different countries without having to retest for every country. But I don't know if one of you would like to provide a more specific answer.
Yes, in fact, the question is also covering if they can certify, if they can select the products and they don't need to certify everything. The answer is obviously yes. You can choose the range of products. That's what I explained. It's the very first step in your certification project, is to decide internally, strategically, what are you going to select in terms of products line to be qualified, to be certified. So it's, of course, 100% your choice what will be in the list of the selected products, models, technology, and so on. Of course, yes. But you said, can we, you said we can certify what we want. Yes, as far as it's a heat pump, if it's possible, of course.
Yeah, so it depends on the model. And if you'd like to know more about this, I think Tom Lapère from Daikin had given a quite detailed presentation on how they managed this issue. Yeah, in our last webinar. So you can go to our YouTube channel, the European Heat Pump Association, and the recording is there. Okay, we have a couple more questions. One for Ivan. When is it expected for fully acceptance of load-based testing method?
If it's going to be accepted, in which form and when, this is actually an ongoing discussion. I think both at Ecodesign, but Mélanie maybe can say a little bit more on that. But also within the relevant, so within, in this case, it's TC113, so it's the CEN Technical Committee covering electrically driven heat pumps. So there is a lot of discussion on that. So actually, at the moment, I don't see, as I said, a certain date or until it can be expected, and in what form and if at all.
Yeah, from the Ecodesign point of view, it's similar to Ivan's reply. It's hard to see when exactly it will be there. For the moment in the Ecodesign review, we're talking about an early review of the upcoming review. So it's like it's not coming with the upcoming review, but it's coming with the next review. So an early review of the second review, and then eventually here. But it needs time, standardization work. So it's not for now. It's hard to tell exactly the date for that to follow up on.
Okay, thank you. One last
Maybe
question.
I can just add, sorry, Danaé, just one more thing. However, the work is going on, so it's not only the discussion, but also the work on developing this test procedure. So there are lots of activities on this side. There are round-robin tests where a lot of test labs are involved, and also manufacturers and so on. So there is a lot of work going on, and I think the decision makers are actually waiting for more results from all this work that we're doing. Well, depending on the results and depending on the questions, and the decision makers are going to well, make their decision.
Thank you, Ivan. I think we have one last question, and the person asks, how far are countries not recognizing heat pump KEYMARK today to change their minds so we can see a real harmonized spread of heat pump KEYMARK?
I think it's a good question to wrap up this webinar. We have two situations in terms of recognition, non-recognition of the heat pump KEYMARK. Either the country is not regulating the sector in terms of quality, so it's open, there is nothing in place, or there is, already something in place, a regulation in place, requirements in place, institution in place, even a scheme in place. So we have these two situations. And for both situations, we are at KEYMARK definitely making on daily basis this exposure to the scheme, explaining the scheme, the certification, the benefits. But what is also important, and we agreed last time during our scheme group, is that the industry, the manufacturers, they have also to voice their opinion, and they have to push to say, hey, we want in this country, why you don't establish the KEYMARK, because we think these are the benefits as a manufacturer, benefits for the industry and for Europe. So in short, it is indeed a daily again task for the KEYMARK, but also the manufacturer, the industry has also now to push much more for recognition of these schemes, for the quality schemes. So this is my answer to your question.
Thank you, Tarik. And this is a good opportunity to give you all a last chance to say maybe one last word, maybe about what you think we need in the future to allow the KEYMARK and heat pumps in general to roll out as much as possible. Mélanie, would you like to comment on that?
To roll out heat pumps. Well, I think from the policy team, this is exactly what my colleague Josephine is doing with the heat pump accelerator. We have our recommendation that is feeding into the heat pump action plan. And actually, yesterday we had a meeting with the Commission on the heat pump action plan workshop. And I think that this is really important that we continue the work for the full rollout of heat pump. And from the side of KEYMARK, as I was saying earlier, this is really extremely important in the rollout of heat pump to fully recognize the quality of our heat pumps, the possibility of it, and of course obtain subsidies when needed in some of the member states.
Thank you, Mélanie. Ivan, what's your perspective? What do you think is needed to improve even further in the future?
Well, from the test, let's say coming from a test institute, I think for us what's important is to have a clear picture of what we have to test, how we have to do it. So as we are doing it according to the standard, I think. And standard are also very closely related to Ecodesign. So I think a clear picture of what is coming in the next years will be helpful. And when it comes really how Heat Pump KEYMARK scheme can support us as test institutes, I think this peer group, as it is now, the discussions that we are going on is really a great platform to exchange knowledge and to come to common understanding of what we have to do and how we have to do it. So yeah, just keep on the good work. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan. Laurent, as a certified manufacturer, as a certified heat pump manufacturer, what do you hope to see in the future to improve the market further?
Firstly, I would say that we have to wait for the final text for the Ecodesign regulation, because clearly regulation drives the market. That's very clear from our point of view. So we have to wait about what will be just in the text. Do we have some ban? We will see. But on the other hand, I would say that for sure, if we want to have a fast deployment of heat pump all over Europe, we need to have a full recognition of HP KEYMARK in all countries. For sure, it would help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. This brings us to the end of this webinar. If you haven't done so already, if you'd like to stay in the loop of what we're doing, feel free to follow us on our social media, visit our website, and if you have more questions, feel free to contact us via email. You will receive the presentation and the recording of this session right after this webinar. And I see Tarik has his hand raised.
Yes, I just quickly wanted to thank everyone for joining, and the presentations, and for those who presented. Thank you very much, Mélanie, Laurent, Ivan. Thank you very much. I would like just to say that through this presentation, I see clearly that for the policy, it is clear that there is this final text for Ecodesign, as Laurent mentioned, but we see that the policy is in continuous evolvement. So we need to pay attention to that, and especially this coming months. This is really a moving part that, thanks to Mélanie and the team from policy, can help us to understand better this. From Ivan, I understand that it's always a challenge, a technical challenge to measure, to take the measure, to set up the testing. I always heard this, and most of all, I understand also that adapting to the new technology, the new technologies that are coming, and so we need also as a laboratory to follow and to find the solutions to challenge the product. So it's a challenge to challenge the product. And what I liked from Laurent is that Groupe Atlantic is a good example of considering the certification not as a burden, but as a benefit. This is really interesting. But I know that for the manufacturers, being certified is also the challenge of the recognition that it's well noted, and we are working on this. And so this is also a common challenge, because I stress again on the fact that the manufacturers needs also to push and to push for the recognition of a solid third-party certification. So the recognition also is definitely well noted as a nice challenge. So these are my main points, and thank you very much again for attending. It was really good.
Thank you for this very nice wrap-up, Tarik. And in turn, I would like to thank the speakers, so Ivan, Laurent, Mélanie, and of course, Tarik. And then, of course, all of you for participating online. I hope to see you again in a future webinar from KEYMARK, and have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.